One big thing about Star Trek, Section 31's villain makes no sense. Star Trek, Section 31, Paramount Plus's latest dive into the shadowy corners of the Federation, promised intrigue, espionage, and moral ambiguity. Fans were hyped for the gritty, morally gray storytelling that the Section 31 organization is known for, an espionage arm willing to operate outside the Federation's strict ethical codes. Yet, despite strong production values and compelling performances, one glaring problem emerges almost immediately: the show's main villain makes no sense. This might sound harsh, but it's hard to ignore. In a franchise known for its layered antagonists, think Gul Dukat's manipulation on Deep Space Nine or Khan's charismatic ruthlessness, the Section 31 series struggles to make its central threat believable, consistent, or even logical. For a show ostensibly about the murky morality of Starfleet's clandestine operations, the failure of its villain is more than just a minor flaw. It undercuts the series' core premise. Who is the villain? Without spoiling every twist, the villain of Section 31 is introduced as a figure operating within the shadows, orchestrating events that threaten both Starfleet and the broader galaxy. The show positions this character as a cunning strategist, someone whose intelligence and foresight surpass that of the heroes. On paper, this is exactly what a Star Trek villain should be: a mirror reflecting the organization's dark potential, testing the moral fiber of our protagonists. But as the episodes unfold, the writing undermines these traits. The villain's actions often contradict their supposed intelligence. Plans that should require careful thought fall apart due to minor oversights. Motives that are hinted at in cryptic dialogues are then either ignored or inconsistently applied. By the time viewers reach the climax, it's difficult to feel tension or fear because the antagonist behaves less like a master manipulator and more like a series of arbitrary plot triggers. The problem of motivation. One of the biggest issues is the villain's motivation, or lack thereof. In great Star Trek storytelling, even the darkest characters have understandable reasons for their actions. Gul Dukat's manipulation is rooted in his personal pride, sense of superiority, and twisted paternal instincts. Khan's vendetta against Kirk comes from years of suffering and a deeply personal sense of injustice. Even the morally ambiguous characters of Voyager's future timeline have motivations grounded in survival and pragmatism. Section 31's villain, however, is frustratingly vague. Early hints suggest a goal tied to Federation corruption, or perhaps a personal vendetta against a key character, but these hints never crystallize. Instead, the character schemes often appear as convenient devices to generate conflict rather than as the outcome of a believable plan. Viewers are left asking, why is this happening? What does this person actually want? The answers are either nonsensical or contradictory, leaving a gaping hole in the narrative. This lack of coherent motivation has ripple effects. Without understanding the antagonist's why, it's impossible to fully grasp the stakes. Star Trek has always thrived on philosophical tension, moral dilemmas, ideological conflicts, ethical quandaries. A villain without a clear purpose deprives the story of this tension. The result? The show feels like espionage theater without the intellectual payoff Star Trek fans crave. The problem of capability. A villain's threat isn't just about motivation, it's about capability. To be compelling, a Star Trek antagonist must pose a real challenge to the heroes. In Section 31, the villain is introduced with all the trappings of danger: shadowy contacts, secret technology, and a reputation that inspires fear. Yet episode by episode, these threats fail to land. Confident schemes unravel with minimal effort from the protagonists. High-tech devices meant to create suspense instead highlight narrative convenience. Suddenly, problems are solved because a character happens to find a solution, not because the villain underestimated them. This inconsistency erodes credibility. Compare this with Deep Space Nine, where the Cardassians' plots, while sometimes intricate, always felt dangerous. Dukat's failures were often the result of character flaws or hubris, not arbitrary plot convenience. The Section 31 villain, on the other hand, falters without a discernible reason, leaving the audience frustrated rather than engaged. Inconsistent characterization. Another challenge lies in how the show portrays the villain across different episodes. Early on, the character seems poised, calculating, almost omniscient. Later, the same character engages in reactive, almost emotional decisions that contradict their supposed strategic genius. This inconsistency makes it hard to take the villain seriously. Star Trek villains often shine because their personalities are consistent, even when morally complex. Whether it's Sella's cold calculation or Lor's sociopathic cunning, fans can anticipate behavior, which heightens suspense. Section 31's villain, by contrast, oscillates between menace and absurdity. At times, the character seems capable of manipulating entire fleets. At others, they trip over minor details that anyone in a shadow organization would presumably plan for. This whiplash makes it nearly impossible for viewers to respect the character as a credible threat. The stakes fall flat. When a show's villain doesn't make sense, the stakes collapse. Section 31 attempts to create tension through moral ambiguity, heroes wrestling with dark choices, the potential for betrayal, and the dangers of unchecked power. Yet when the antagonist's actions seem arbitrary, the tension evaporates. Moments that should feel dramatic instead feel hollow. A supposed life or death scenario may resolve quickly because the villain decides to step aside, or a climactic confrontation may lack emotional weight because the audience never fully understands the villain's stakes. This is especially damaging for a Star Trek series, which relies on philosophical and moral engagement as much as action or spectacle. Missed opportunities. It's frustrating because the show had so much potential. Section 31, as an organization, offers fertile ground for exploring the moral compromises of a utopian society. A well-crafted villain could have been a perfect foil for this. Someone whose intelligence, ambition, and ruthlessness force Starfleet officers to confront uncomfortable truths about their own values. Instead, the series squanders this opportunity. With better written motivation, consistent characterization, and a plausible strategy, the villain could have anchored the show, creating suspense and intellectual tension in equal measure. As it stands, the character feels like a missed opportunity, a shadow of what Section 31 storytelling is capable of delivering. Fan reactions. The fan reaction has been predictably divided. Many viewers praise the show for its visuals, action sequences, and the promise of deeper Star Trek lore. But almost universally, discussions of the villain become a point of frustration. Online forums are filled with posts asking, "Why is the villain doing X?" or "This plan doesn't make sense." Some fans even jokingly suggest that the character was written by an alternate universe Starfleet officer who doesn't understand tactics. This reaction highlights a core problem. In Star Trek, the villain is often as important as the hero. A well-crafted antagonist allows audiences to explore ethical dilemmas, ideological conflicts, and philosophical questions. Without this, Section 31 risks being a shadow of the franchise's potential, trading moral complexity for spectacle. Could it be fixed? There is hope, at least narratively. The show could benefit from retroactive clarification or deepening the villain's backstory. Understanding why the